A plethora of video games tell real-life narratives, but I would posit video games address real-world issues less than any other medium. Often games are seen as a sort of escapism, used merely as a reprieve from the rigors of our daily lives. They serve this purpose well, and I've participated wholly in the practice of video games as a form of escapism. I've also played plenty of games which operate outside the realm of mindless fun, have incredible narratives, and focus on the human condition, but do not necessarily directly criticize the world they exist in. Little Red Lie is pinpoint focused on the world in which we live. The closest economically structured analogies I can think of are Cart Life and Papers, Please, but those games aren't as centered around narrative as they are focused on the Ludo narrative as the main storytelling device. Little Red Lie is concentrated quite intensely on turning the camera on us. It is barely a window into another world, but rather a window into our own, a window covered in dirt, piss, and shit. Games set the tone of their narrative in a multitude of ways. Some games drop you directly into gameplay. Other games open with screenshots or narration. But what does it say about a game when its first question to you is, did you make over $55,127 in the prior year? In Little Red Lie, we follow Sarah Stone and Arthur Fox as they trade off the narrative, telling what closely resemble short autobiographies about important moments in their lives. The game progresses through a visual novel format. You read through text, interact with the world, and progress the story moment to moment by interacting with the environment. The key element of the writing in Little Red Lie is that when a character lies, the text of that lie is shown in red. These lies can be the characters lying to others, lying about the world around them, or simply lying to themselves. The lying in Little Red Lie is fairly nuanced and often subverts expectations about what lying even entails. The more affecting lies of Little Red Lie come in the form of the lies we tell ourselves. Early on, Sarah lies to herself about the simple act of enjoying celebrity gossip. This may seem insignificant, but it sets the stage for the larger lies that Sarah tells herself later on in the story. She tells herself that everything will work out in regards to her mother's illness, that her sister, and her father will make it through the illness both mentally and financially. These lies are a framework for a larger theme, but work well in isolated moments. They stress the volume of our lies, even when speaking to those closest to us. Most of our sentences contain lies, no matter how microscopic, and our two main characters lie a lot. Sarah is a 38-year-old woman who lost her job and moved back in with her parents. She was on contract with a company who treated her as though she was an intern and abused her hard work by taking advantage of her goodwill. Sarah has a family in disarray, plagued by mental disorders, medical debt, and a situation that has no possible positive conclusion. Her mother is on the brink of death, her father is under immense stress, and her sister is a Twitch streamer who lives in the basement, leeching off her parents. Sarah and her family are trapped in their situation, and they have absolutely no way out. Our other character, Arthur Fox, is a one-percenter who gives motivational speeches in the interest of a bank, who then gives out small business loans to the people at Arthur's conferences. Arthur could give a shit about anybody that he speaks to. He's not there to make a difference in people's lives. He isn't there because he is a sociable fellow. He's there to lie and make ridiculous amounts of money. And why does he want this money? Because Arthur loves money. It's not because of power or because of drive. Arthur loves wealth and activities related to being wealthy. Arthur is a stand-in for disgusting opulence. He is a drug addict, alcoholic, piece of shit who hates his family and surely could be convicted of a variety of crimes. He's the ugly, boil-ridden face of capitalism, rearing its head and spitting in your face. And much like Sarah, he has no way out. The weight of the story in Little Red Lie is heavy, but it paces our journey with these characters really well. We get small stories from each character, and the alternating nature of the story helps avoid the crushing and depressing tone from becoming plodding or overbearing. Each small bit of information we obtain about the two protagonists, if you even want to call them that, is a personal and mesmerizing look at their lives and how they relate to societal ills. For example, early on, as Sarah, we go to a coffee shop to meet with an old friend. Sarah simultaneously acts as both a legitimate voice against the horrible realities of minimum wage labor and as a large part of the problem. She may be criticizing the capitalist system she lives in, but she just as easily partakes in the system as a regular customer of that coffee shop. I'd be lying if I told you I don't do the same thing. I lament the diminished state of the working class, but I willingly participate in its subjugation. Sarah is an agent and victim of capitalism in this scenario, and this scene is one of the great indicators of what Little Red Lie truly represents. It's not only a critique of capitalism, but a critique of us as participants, while simultaneously fully acknowledging the fact that we can do nothing about it. Sarah then speaks with her friend, lying about her financial situation and job status. Her friend, on the other hand, is doing well and is proud of her life situation. She travels and lives off of her husband's dime. It's easy to relate to Sarah's lies, but we also should be asking ourselves why Sarah lies in this scenario. Sarah is likely lying because people often view income and financial standing and associate it with success and failure. Sarah doesn't fear honesty here. She fears judgment. She fears being lesser than her friend, not because her friend is a better person than her, but because she has less money. Money is pervasive throughout their conversation, from Sarah hoping her friend will buy her coffee, to painting their feelings about each other, to infecting the way they interact. This scene is a dishearteningly painful perception of how even something as basic as interacting with an old friend can be torn apart by our obsession with money. After each scene with Sarah, we get a scene with Arthur, our quintessential 80s business guy, who represents dingy elements of our society. He is unabashedly a total fuck. There is nothing sympathetic about him. He will be completely unrelatable to most people, yet he is supposed to feel oddly familiar. He has an early scene in a car dealership that comes to mind, where he wants to buy a high-end automobile. He doesn't need it. He doesn't even truly seem to be interested in cars. He consistently feigns knowledge about vehicles throughout his parlay through the dealership. But he wants that car. And why does he want that car? He wants the status of owning that car. He wants to be able to tell people that he owns that car. And while you may have never felt the need to impress people with a car or purchase, you have in some way acted in the way Arthur acted. You have, in all likelihood, purchased something in your life that you inexplicably wanted. Maybe you thought it would bring you happiness. Maybe you thought it would bring you closer to people around you. But you have consumed. It might not be in the ravenous way that Arthur consumes, but the basis of most of Arthur's actions are not completely unrelatable. In one scene, Arthur crashes his car into the side of the strip club and does his best to avoid humiliation from a DUI and any responsibility whatsoever. But would you have not tried to get out of that situation? Would you not have used your resources? Are we all not in some way a toned-down version of Arthur Fox? Will O'Neill, throughout Little Red Lie, turns the camera on you. It's not exactly direct, but it obscures the wall between reality and the game quite often. Many of the actions of the main protagonists are often ridiculous and melodramatic, but given the same situation, I would not be surprised if we acted in the same way, or at least in the same way to a lesser extent. O'Neill works to bring the themes of Little Red Lie home through a really strong narrative device. During these scenes, in between the dialogue, the screen will cut to black, and we will get to see the inner monologue of Sarah and Arthur. It is in these moments that they become self-aware, showing their agency over their actions. They will speak bluntly, about why they are acting in the way they are. They will tell you why they are saying certain things, acting a certain way, or treating people the way they are. These moments are when O'Neill is most blunt, most effective, and the most deceptive. I would like to argue that these thoughts are not actually the thoughts of the characters. In fact, I think they are obviously the inner dialogues of O'Neill himself. It is even suggested in the game that Arthur is not in control of what he is saying. What O'Neill is trying to show is that these characters are not in control at all. They are not acting the opposite of their inner monologue. These thoughts are not flowing through their heads. By showing us these inner dialogues, not only is O'Neill explaining their actions, but showing they have no agency. Despite all of these thoughts, despite all of these inner workings, the characters do nothing. The biggest lie of Little Red Lie is that we deceive ourselves into believing we have some control over money, when in reality, it has even penetrated our inner consciousness. This is one of the best, if not the best, use of a literary device I've seen in games this year. Play through the game again with this in mind, and see how it changes your perceptions of the characters and their actions. Emblematic of this sentiment, and my favorite character in the game, is the lady with red hair. Now would be a good time to duck out of the review if you're at all interested in the game and don't want to be spoiled on anything. The lady with the red hair is an enigmatic figure who speaks directly to the player. She is used to drive home the lack of control we have. She seems to be controlling Arthur's moments of speaking to the player through the black screen. She is there to remind us that the rich and powerful aren't some masters of persuasion or genius tacticians. She argues most of them are idiots, controlled puppets of a higher power. Because often, what we see in our more prominent figures are not individuals acting of their own volition, but a person simply doing the bidding of someone more powerful. She even goes as far to threaten us, taking away our small amount of interactivity in the moments she is on the screen. She tells us what we are, a little piss-poor participant in this interactive nightmare. The red-haired lady is constantly working behind the scenes, and manipulating us to believe Arthur is somehow a sympathetic character. But he isn't. He's just as oafish and clueless as the rest of us. This moment really drives home how powerless we are in the world we live in. It emphasizes that our relationship and sense of contribution to this world is largely an illusion. Another lingering theme throughout Little Red Lie is debt. Sarah's family has massive medical debt, and it essentially ruins their lives, their family, and causes incurable rifts between them. Their lives and interactions are almost entirely centered around debt. It's also their consumerism that has gotten them in so much trouble. Because when Arthur Fox posits we have no control over our situation, he doesn't just mean you end up on the economic totem pole you were given. He means you were born into this system. You can't control yourself. You need to consume. And that's exactly what Sarah's sister does. She's a large part of the problem. She racks up credit card debt, doesn't work, lives in her parents' basement, and contributes nothing to the family. And they all hate her for it. Not for who she is exactly, but for the fact that she consumes more than she produces. Consequently, her debt becomes not just monetary, but personal. She owes the family, and the entire family knows it. Arthur's debt is naturally lessened. Not that he has any kind of monetary debt at the beginning of the game, but Arthur repeatedly gets himself into hot water and just walks away. There are no consequences. He has a comically large golden parachute. He is a toxic human being, detestable beyond all measure, but it doesn't matter. He's safe. He's protected, because the world doesn't care how nice you are. It does not matter how much good is in your heart. If you don't have the money, you're as good as dead. But although Arthur may continue on living, coddled by his safety net, he's truly dead inside. Money has taken his breathing corpse and turned it into nothingness. Money has consumed Arthur's very soul, his entire human essence. Through its focus on debt, Little Red Lie narrows in on the dehumanizing effects of wealth. In many scenarios, the tables are turned. Sarah eventually stabilizes financially, and she begins acting differently. Where she was once tolerant of the working class, saying they're overworked and underpaid, she eventually begins to treat them with contempt, expecting things from them. She has money and feels she deserves more. She begins to start showing signs of having Arthur Fox-like personality traits. It's scary. It's the scariest and most subtle horror I've seen this year. But it's poignant. I used to work in the service industry, and my girlfriend still does. What O'Neill is depicting is unnervingly accurate. Not of everyone, but of many. Corporate policy, societal pressures, and customers dehumanize you in ways you couldn't imagine, because, in their eyes, you're lesser than them. O'Neill takes what I would consider significant parts of our culture that are unseen and unknown and brings them to the forefront of our minds, all while telling an engaging, overarching story. One of the more interesting side stories in Little Red Lie is the story of Sarah and Jose. Jose is a banker who gives Sarah a way out of her family's debt. Him and Sarah fall for each other and become romantically interested. Jose, however, is not who he says he is. Jose is a scammer who is using Sarah to build capital by reverse mortgaging her family home. All that is for the setup of why Jose is doing this. Jose has a family who he needs to take care of. And in one of the most self-aware moments in the game, Jose explains to Sarah why she doesn't know shit about true poverty. Jose explains his origins and how desperate his former situation was. His family truly suffered, and while Sarah toiled in her middle-class struggles, she would never be able to fully conceptualize how severe poverty could truly be. But Jose is also a tragic story, as he, too, loses his humanity to money. It creates not only dramatic irony, but a sense that Sarah, despite her troubles, was more privileged than she knew, because we all toil in our suffering. Sarah and Jose's storyline is the most straightforward drama of the game, and really emphasizes that Little Red Lie is a hell of a story. And that's the thing, what I'm talking about may seem heavy or overbearing, but it's actually all wrapped up in a very engaging drama. The story is great, and it's very intriguing. The writing is top-notch, and the pacing is excellently done. You likely won't find a better story in gaming this year. With that being said, I did find a few typos, and thought the theme of lying got lost a little bit on the way, but that did little to detract from my experience. The story is what I find so impressive about Little Red Lie. I believe what we have in Little Red Lie is a snapshot of modern society through a crushingly pessimistic but truly accurate lens. We have a game that does not take us to another world, as so many games try to do, but rather takes us deeper into our own. This is important, vital, and groundbreaking work. Little Red Lie could serve as a lesson to others, but will it? I would say not. Little Red Lie is treading on non-consumer friendly ground and has sold poorly thus far, which is a fucking shame. This game is too damn good to not sell. It's so well written and so well built. It leaves you thinking long after you're finished with it. It demands your attention and can affect the entire way you view society around you. So, why is nobody playing it?
Well, I'm pretty sure I just answered that. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. It's probably more of a critical analysis. And these are usually more serious than my other reviews. But as a treat, I will go ahead and give you the old theme song that you missed in the beginning. So, come on, DJ, cue that shit up. Cue it up.
Baasvik, basic reviews. Baasvik, basic reviews. Baasvik, basic reviews. Video games. He's not gonna cry. He's not gonna bitch or whine. He's Baasvik, and he's gonna